So, hello and welcome to our 31st session in our ongoing Tarot On videos to get us through the pandemic of 2020. This is the 31st video, I believe, and we're covering a lot more of NLP and its relationship to tarot, and also we've covered in the past a lot of Kabbalah and tarot. And if you take a look at the units in our Facebook group where I'm storing all of these, then we have an indication of, if you're an absolute beginner, where to start. I think it's somewhere in the mid-20s. I've put a couple of very beginner lessons for you, and obviously these lessons or discussions introducing NLP into our readings, and we're going to take a look at that in a very interesting way, I hope, today, with guided visualization, inner work, visualization, path working, and that sort of thing, and how NLP can actually really change the way that you enter into a card and really experience it. So hello to everyone from Rome to Maryland, from New York City to the UK. Hello to everyone. I guess for most of us, we're just entering into what will probably be, I would guess, the middle phase of our various lockdowns. At the moment, about half the population of the earth, half of humanity, are now under some form of lockdown or another, as we try and stop the spread of the coronavirus. And the cards that I got today for my own meditations were Stop, this one, and Prudence. And interestingly enough, Prudence is from the Latin, and it means far-sightedness, so being able to see in front of you, even though something is directly stopping you or blocking you, that the insight almost comes from behind and then allows us to roughly know where we're going, even if we can't see where we're going. And sometimes when we're going down a very dark tunnel, it may appear that we are at a dead end all of the time and have come to a stop, as this card is, stop. But in fact, it may be that we are still guiding ourselves along, and we know that we're going the right direction because we have something in front of us, and that we're guided by this small voice behind us that just keeps us going to the end of the tunnel, and that is Prudence. So I thought these cards were very powerful today, because for a lot of us, I think the lockdown will be really sort of taking effect. It's like the middle of a marathon when you suddenly realize that you're very tired and you still have to run. Most of the marathon is still in front of you, and so it's very important that we all look after ourselves, stay safe and sane, and so on. At the moment, I don't know what you guys are reading. I'm currently reading a book called The Knowledge. Strangely enough, I bought this in December. I felt very moved to go and pick it up in a second-hand bookshop. The first time I saw it was in mid-December, and I just basically looked at it, thought it was an interesting concept, and then I suddenly realised the following week I really wanted to buy this book, and I walked into the second-hand bookshop in a town that I only go once a week for an appointment, and the book was still there, and I picked it up, and I've been reading it. It's a very interesting thought experiment about what sort of knowledge we will need to rebuild the world after a total apocalypse. But it wasn't until I shared it on Facebook a little while ago and said that this was one of the books on my reading list, that someone said they were going to buy it, and wasn't it spooky what was on the back. And I hadn't really seen what was on the back, but of course it says maybe it was a global pandemic or world pandemic that brings society to its knees. So it's just really strange, really strange. So Feel the Fear, excellent book. Earthsea, brilliant, of course. We've been looking at that. The Jesus Mysteries, that's an interesting book. So that's one of the books, and I'm also very much looking forward at the moment to reading this book that I received recently, bought recently from Angel Miller, and it's on a sort of Freemasonic view of spirituality through the stages of initiation in three very definitive stages of craftsman, warrior, and magician. So I'm looking forward to reading this. Respect Angel Miller's work a lot, and I think it's going to be a very fascinating read. So what we're going to cover today is back to our NLP, and you might want to Greg Bear, the Infinity Concerto, excellent. I love Greg Bear's work. Aeon is a phenomenal book. It really changed my view of that sort of what's it called, space opera, science fiction. Greg Bear's stuff, and particularly his sort of future prediction about humanity. His future humans are very interesting in terms of the Mart current, because in his sort of future humans, particularly in Aeon, I think, without spoilers, there's a very sort of like global or interlinked consciousness that humanity has, which is very interesting. Someone's reading Black Elk History of the Medicine Man. Interesting stuff. Right, okay, so NLP stuff, we're going to break down a little bit, not just break down a little bit, if only, add stuff on VACOG. And for those who are just joining us, this will look rather convoluted, but these are some things we've been looking at. They're basically ways of speaking and ways of being able to listen to people to work out what's really going on in their language patterns, and also their non-verbal communications as well. And VACOG is basically the representations of the world that we have in terms of our senses. So visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, smell, and gustatory, taste. These are our five senses, and they're basically how we represent the world inside our heads. Now, some people will say that they're very visual, some people are very auditory, and so on. But the interesting thing that we're going to cover today are what in the books and the courses are often called submodalities. Now, I have a whole range of little soapbox subjects and things that I get incensed about and annoyed about and whinge about, and they're not very important, but they are to me. And submodalities is one of those phrases that doesn't actually mean anything. There are several NLP phrases that don't really mean anything, and submodalities, they're not sub and they're not modal, the things that title is describing. So I'll call them modalities, but I won't call them submodalities, and that's just my little soapbox thing. But what they are is they're the components, the building blocks of each of those representation systems. And to explain that, it's easier to explain it in an example than in any sort of theoretical way. If I visualize something, or if you visualize something, and I'd like you to try this with me, I want you to just visualize any object that you want, something pleasant, something nice, whatever the nicest, most comforting thing that you can visualize at the moment. And so I've got a little kitten with a ball of string, okay, and I'm visualizing a little kitten with a ball of string. Now you'll notice as well that my eyes have gone up and to the right, so that's visual, because I'm looking up, and to the right because I'm creating something, not recalling something. I'm creating something. And so that generally tells people that you're visualizing and that you're creating a picture if you look up that way, generally. Okay, so that's what I'm going to visualize. Now that's my representation system. That's visual, okay? And if you're thinking of something, you might not be seeing it, you might be hearing it or feeling it, but if you can see it, then it will have components to it, and these are called the modalities. So it will have color or black and white. So if you can visualize something for me and then ask yourself, is that color or black and white? Okay, so, and if you can type into the thread where it appears on your screen, is it color or black and white? Mine's mainly color, okay, that I'm visualizing. And so color is a modality, okay? Now size is also a modality of vision. So the size of it if I look at it, it's about this big. It's sort of not huge, but it's about this big, sort of inside my head, or as I'm looking up at it, I can see this little kitten and the ball of string about yay big, sort of just up above me, somewhere up there. Now again, these are not necessarily true things, but when we ask the question, they become fixed. It's a bit like Schrodinger's cat. When you ask the question, the unconscious process has to come up with a conscious thing. So people are visualizing something with some color, in one case black and white. That's great. Again, no right answer, no wrong answer. It's just the way that you're visualizing something now. Okay. So the next thing is size. So think about the size of it. Does it feel huge or big? And distance as well. How far away from you does that thing feel? Is it right behind you? Are you visualizing it behind you? Or is it somewhere like, in my case, it's about this far away and it's somewhere up there, okay? And it's about this big. It's almost like in one of those little thought bubbles where I can see it clearly. It's a little kitten, ball of string, and it's color, and it's got about this size, and it's this far away, okay? Now, the visual representation system has an awful lot of other modalities, factors to it. There are things like, is it moving or is it still? So does it have movement? Now, some of these modalities, the second important thing about them, other than that they exist, is that they are either, and this is a little bit more advanced, but I want to throw it in at the moment, it's either digital or analog. That is to say, something can either be colour or black and white. It could sort of be in between, but generally that's a digital description. It's either one or the other. Size is analog. Size is a scale of things. It's on a scale, so that's called an analog modality, okay, because it has a sliding scale. And guess which one is easier to change? Guess which one is easier to change? Is it a digital thing that someone holds in their mind as a digital representation, or an analog thing which is a sliding scale? Okay. Guess when someone holds a representation, even if that thing is anxiety, which one of those two modality types is it easier to change? Is it digital or is it analog, like a sliding scale? Okay, I'll give you a moment to think about that. Now, in terms of auditory, my vision doesn't really have any sound. Doesn't have any sound at all. But have a think about what you're thinking about and see if it has any sound. Okay? Does it have any sound? Now, you notice Diane is describing high in the sky fluffy. Okay, now fluffy is a very kinesthetic thing. It could be a visual thing that it looks fluffy, but also it's a very feeling thing. So that's a kinesthetic thing, and that's texture. So texture is a modality of the kinesthetic representation system. Doesn't that sound a grand thing to say? When we're talking about the fluffiness of a cloud, that is the texture, which is the modality of a kinesthetic thing. Okay, so some people might have sound, some people don't. Now, Evelyn's answered, and I entirely agree that analog is easier to change. And this is why in things like CBT, one of the questions that they ask is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how is your anxiety today? Because that implies and puts it on a scale, an analog scale. And the moment someone answers that, and it's a very good thing, and here's an insider tip for pain management with hypnotherapy, to put something on an analog scale out of a digital scale. It's very difficult to just have pain and then switch it off. Whereas if you put it on an analog scale for how is your pain today on a scale of 1 to 50 or 1 to 10 or 1 to 5, then you've got a chance then to move it because it's analog. And it's very easy to do that in a tarot card reading by saying, I can see that your concern for this on a scale of 1 to 10 is, and then just leave the question open and let the other person fill it in. If they say, I'm at a 9, then that's great. They have then put themselves onto your analog scale. You've made it an analog thing, and then it's easier to slide that down than it is to suddenly just like flip it from stop panicking, you're calm now. Okay, so if you can work in a way of making something a little bit more analog with a scale, then it's a lot easier to shift. You can have very dramatic effects by changing digital, but that's quite often best done under a trance-like state, because then you can bypass the critical faculty, switch it like that in the unconscious, and the conscious mind will go, wow. And we might see an example of that in the exercise that I've got for us to do today with tarot cards. Okay, so if it has sound, then volume is a modality of that. Tone, frequency, whether it's staccato or a smoother sound, all of the modalities of sound are components of the sound of it. Okay, but volume, I think, and even distance, proximity, is another one. And volume, of course, is an analog, like in the what's that rock documentary called? The heavy metal one, when they say, oh, why can't our speaker have an 11 on it, as opposed to a 10? It needs to go all the way up to 11. So Lily's saying tone and frequency, things that you notice. So in your representation system, those are modalities of your auditory way of representing the world. Makes sense? So these are what are called modalities, and I've written it here, and these are the qualities of our representation of experience in terms of VACOG. Okay, so VACOG is our representation systems of the world, and modalities are the components or qualities of each of them, and they're either analog or digital. Isn't that cool? So basically, that's the sort of model of it. And so what can we do with it? Well, here's the thing. A spinal tap. Thank you, spinal tap. Yay, rock on. So let's take my kitten then, not literally, but let's just look at whatever you're visualizing. And now I want you to try this with it. Okay, so if you want to close your eyes, then you can. I won't be able to tell, so you can or you don't have to. But I'm going to close my eyes just to demonstrate. And I'm going to take my picture of the kitten and I'm going to bring it closer to me. Okay, so I'm going to visualize, and I'm going to take a deep breath while I do it just to anchor it a little bit. As I breathe in, I'm going to imagine that the kitten is coming closer to me, that picture. Ready? Right. Okay. So it feels a bit oppressive if it's about here. So I'm just going to move it out slightly and put it about here. Okay, now can you see that little smile that formed? If I was watching myself do this, if I was watching a client do this, then I would watch for something like that little smile, and I would know that, yeah, that's about right. Just there, yeah. Oh, look at the kitten. So there it is. Now the next thing I'm going to do is change from the distance the size. So I'm now going to make it bigger. Okay, and you'll notice the smile increasing as I make it bigger. And okay, so I've now got this sort of massive kitten. It's like the kitten on top of the post office tower in the Goodies series. And it's playing with a ball of string that is about the size of I don't know, a football field. And yeah, okay, so I've got that. So I want you to try and do exactly the same thing with your pleasant visualization. Bring it closer, make it further away. If you need help doing that internally, then take a nice deep breath. And if you find it difficult to do, then pretend that you're doing it. Imagine what that would be like if you could do it, and then just stop pretending. And you'll find that that will work, because this is just made up. It's in your imagination. There's no right way of doing it, and you can allow yourself to pretend to do it and then find yourself having done it anyway. Okay? Now, if you didn't have any sound, or if you had sound, once you've got it into the right sweet spot that really amplifies the feeling of the picture, I then want you to add sound if you didn't have sound. And just imagine, all right, I've got this very cute purring sound that a kitten might make, and that sort of adds the feeling a little bit to me, but not massively, but it does help. And I'm now going to make it a lot louder, which doesn't help. And now I'm going to lower the tone of it and make it really deep purring, and that really does. Yeah, that really makes it very visceral, very kinesthetic as well. And now I'm going to imagine that I can feel the string, and it's not string now, it's wool, so I can feel the wool, and you can see me doing this. So all of those things are changing my representation of it. And once you know that and can practice changing those things in your head, you can do all sorts of interesting stuff, which we're going to find out in a minute. So can anyone give me some feedback for in the live class for any changes that they notice, bringing it closer, further away, making it bigger? If it was black and white, if you make it colour, see how that changes it. All of these things you can change in your imagination. Okay, all of these things you can change. Now, you'll notice I haven't gone into too much detail with the kinesthetic representation system, but if someone comes to you and says, for a reading, and says, I feel like I've just been punched in the stomach, then obviously that's a very kinesthetic representation, and you might want to see how they represent that feeling. Like you say, just offhand, oh, was it like a hard punch or just a soft punch? And they might say it was a hard punch. Then you can say, well, like a sudden one or just a repeated one. They'll say just like a sudden punch to the stomach. Okay, and then you can say, okay, well, let's see if we can make some space for that punch in the reading. And then you can refer to almost hand movements and being hit in the reading to make more space in that internal representation of the impact that whatever situation has happened for that person, whatever singular event is represented as a punch in the stomach. It's a very kinesthetic thing. You can release some of that pressure by mentioning it during the reading in a very kinesthetic way. Like you can even press down on a card as if you were punching it, and then lift your hand up very gently and say, "Oh, what's it like to have that hand off?" You know, when we look at that card now. And in doing so, then you're speaking their language, you're speaking directly to their unconscious representation. Excellent. So some people are having and experiencing some minor or some major effects by changing the way something's represented, which of course it should do. You cannot, one simple NLP trick that's used a lot is if you have a very self-critical voice, like you're constantly telling yourself that you're doing the wrong thing, either in a light trance or sometimes you can even suggest it in a pub thing, in pub change work as I call it, then you can actually say, and if that was a really high-pitched voice inside your head, how would it sound? You know, when you tell yourself, oh, I've done that wrong, go on, typical of me, I'm always doing things wrong. If you suddenly like make it further away, and if someone does something like that, I always reach out to their hand and say, and now, is that you move your hand over there and try and hear that voice the further it gets away. And then you can pull their arm slightly until their arm is way out there, and then you get them to look at the hand that's sort of doing that to them. And then you can also say, and now supposing if it's a high squeaky voice like Mickey Mouse, like, you're always doing it wrong, and stuff like that, and it makes people laugh, and in doing so it releases and it makes that internal representation far more of an analog thing. Even if it doesn't immediately change the way they talk to themselves or release them from this curse of putting themselves down, in them automatically doing that and you automatically changing it, showing that there's a minor change, and it only has to be the most minor change, that is enough to get working with people, because then their brain can code it in an analog way as opposed to a digital way. I'm just the sort of person, I wish I wasn't the sort of person who said that to myself. It's a very digital thing to say. I'm this sort of person and I want to be not that sort of person. When in fact what you can do is turn that into an analog thing very quickly. Okay, does that make sense? And we can do that in tarot card reading as we're talking. If we notice that there are these representations that people have, we can listen for them, and this is the first way of learning. This is the way of Marcus's NLP, is just to listen to everyone all of the time. I learned a whole different model by listening to some young kids in McDonald's once. I learnt a whole model by listening to an offhand comment a Radio Cumbria presenter made one morning. You learn these patterns and learn to utilise them by just listening, because it's the way we all learnt language in the first place. So I'd highly recommend listening and just choosing one thing to listen to, like representation system, whether someone uses a lot of linking words, all of the things that we're covering, just choose one thing to listen for and then go out and listen for it. And sometimes you'll pick up some of the others as well. Now here's what we want to do with our tarot then, just for today, is we're going to take the Page of Cups, because this is a card of great creativity. And I'm going to ask you to do an exercise for me once we've done this. So yeah, talk to the hand because the face don't want to hear you. So we're going to do a little exercise and an optional further exercise in between this session and the next one. And for those watching as a recording, you can do this as well. So the Page of Cups. Now I want you to take a look at the card, and we're going to use the Waite-Smith card so we're all on the same page, and we are going to in a moment close our eyes and imagine that we are on a beach and we are standing behind this figure. okay, so that we can see almost behind them. We could use the, I think it's the vice versa deck to do this with as well. So, because that pictures all of the cards as if we were from the other perspective standing behind them. And that works for some cards very well, and others, like if you're standing behind a throne, it doesn't work as well. But with the Page of Cups, we're going to imagine that we are standing behind the figure so that we can see them. So take a good look at the card, see that he's got these sort of lilies and roses perhaps on his thing. Take a look at that fancy hat, see the fish coming out of the cup, see the waves, and we're going to stand in between him and the waves, looking from behind, with the waves behind us and his back in front of us. Okay, so we'll be able to see the back of his hat, the back of that fancy tunic, the back of his boots, and the sort of back of the cup with the fish coming out of it. Okay, good. I'm glad we're all on the same page. Ha ha ha, same page. Okay, so take a look at the card. Now close your eyes, and I'm going to do this with my eyes closed, so no pulling faces in class. So, right, so I've got the waves behind me. I'm going to do that first, and I can hear them. I can hear them sort of crashing and roaring behind me, which is nice. I can feel the fresh sea air on the back of my neck, and I can see in front of me the page, and I can see the fish actually coming out of the cup almost in like a weird film loop, like a very strange effect. The fish is constantly just poking out of the cup, and then poking out again and disappearing, poking out again, and so on. I can see the page, his hat is being blown by the wind. I can see the tunic slightly being buffed out and things like that. Okay, so I'd like you to do the same and to visualize that as closely as you can. I want you to see how able the page is. He's not fazed by the fish coming out of the cup. We get that from his stance. From behind, we can see very clearly his stance. It's sort of like, devil may care, yeah, of course I know that there's a fish coming out of my cup, what's the problem? Because it symbolizes being open to new creative ideas, a new spirit of openness, allowing things to just flow and so forth. All of the things that your unconscious might associate with the page, with the young attitude, with that openness, that naivete, that ability to learn, that sense of adventure and excitement, and also the cups about emotions and the heart being open, the cup being open to both receive and give out things with no thought to its own self either. We can see all of that, and I'm getting a really solid view of that figure. Okay, and I'm going to make the colors now really bright. Okay, so I'm now going to change my dial for the modality of color and make those red and white flowers really pop on. And in my vision, his tunic is blue with that red and white on it, and it looks like just really vibrant. Now I'm going to sharpen the detail and make that really sharp. And I want you all, if you would like, to do exactly the same for me. And then we're going to change one final modality, which is one of the most important things, and I've deliberately missed it out, save it to the end so that I can demonstrate, hopefully. So if you want to feel this, if you want to experience this, either live or watching this as a recording, then quickly close your eyes, make the image of the page in front of you, have the waves behind you, and really pop the colors, make the sounds louder if that helps, make them deeper if that helps, make it color, bring the page a bit closer to you if that amplifies the sensation of the creativity, of the openness, of that stance of readiness and everything else. Because there's one other major modality that really changes everything in the way we represent the world. And it happens in dreams, it happens in our unconscious, it happens in the way we talk about things all of the time. And our language often reflects it. And it's association or disassociation. And to demonstrate, what I would like you to do is take a deep breath in, and then the moment you breathe out, you're going to step forward in your imagination and occupy the whole body of the page as if you are that page now. And you're holding the cup and you're absolutely associated. I want you to look out through his eyes or her eyes. I want you to feel what you would feel, hear what you would hear, see what you would see, feel what you would feel now inside as associated being the Page of Cups. You are that page, you're holding the weight of the cup, you can feel, I can even smell the fish now. I never realised that, but I can now smell the fish. And it's very sort of energetic and sort of flappity smell is the only way I could describe it. There we go. Okay, and then you can amplify that as much as you want, and don't forget you can come back to this anytime you want. And then when you're ready, you can take a nice deep breath and step back out so that you can see the page again. Maybe almost thank them for having them ready for their occupation. And then you can just allow the scene to dissolve only as quickly as you want to take any of the learning from this and the feeling into your memory so that it can be useful for you at a later or sooner time whenever it's most able to be used by you. And when you're ready, you can just open your eyes from it. Okay? Gosh, I'd forgotten that we were doing this to a live event. Okay, so that's just a demonstration. Oh, I feel all Page of Cupsy now. And that's the point. By changing your representation from being disassociated to associated, that is one of the major changes in your modalities that really has an impact. And you have it in dreams when you're looking out through the dream, or you're watching yourself in a dream, and you have it when you're representing things inside your own head. People talk about things and they say, I was doing this, and then suddenly they say, you know, and then it's like you were being told off, and you know, and they suddenly switch from I to you in their language. And what's happening inside their head is they are now disassociating and seeing themselves from the outside. They're trying to explain it, and sometimes I will correct people and just say very gently, can you just say that again with the word I in it? And I will almost force them to actually occupy their own life so that they can explain, I did this, I felt this, I feel this and think this and interpret this in this way now. Okay. Oh, someone had a great chat with the fish. Excellent. Now, wouldn't it be really incredible if you could practice that, and then in your daily life, whenever you want to, or even without thinking about it, occupy any of the tarot cards, the best one to suit any situation? Wouldn't that be quite a skill to have? So there's something that you can practice for the next year and for the rest of your life. And hopefully it's a gift that will keep giving, because it's a very powerful use of the tarot to actually live the cards and have them at your disposal, to be able to indwell within the archetypal patterns of the cards and model them, and then associate with them in order to interact with your daily life. Excellent. So someone actually took the fish down to the waves. Now, in a guide meditation, again, which I highly recommend, by Edwin Steinbrecher, and we have a guidebook that goes with that technique that maps your astrology, your natal chart to your own unconscious, and then gives you tips by using the tarot in order to work with that. There's quite often a transaction that goes on, and quite often you can say, what gift have you to give me, and what can I do in return in my outside life to honor this gift, respect this gift, or to thank you for your presence, or your wisdom in this working. Okay, so quite often there's a transaction. And so it may be, for example, like an inner guide might say you need to take the fish down to the water, and you put the fish in the water, and then a week later you might do an inner guide meditation and the fish comes out of the water to tell you something new or to talk to you. And basically you're working with the parts of yourself, your unconscious processes, in order to make new transactions, and more powerful ones and more positive ones. The jacket felt a bit bulky. Yeah, sometimes that can be the case. Now, Diane's sort of suggesting sort of astral travel. It's slightly different to astral travel. This is closer to, technically, to path working, to inner guide meditation, to creative visualization, or even freeform visualization. Astral travel is something quite different. It has similarities, but it's quite different. They're all in the same area, like on the Tree of Life. I map all of these to Yesod, but they're different. So lucid dreaming, astral travel, etheric travel, rising on the planes, projection into a sphere, inner guide meditation, creative visualization, freeform visualization, guided meditation. They're all slightly different things, but they all share the same area on the map. Okay. So excellent. Now I hope that what will happen is you'll come up with some new idea that will inspire you over the next few days, just out of the blue, and then maybe later remember that you had the help of the Page of Cups just unconsciously implanted by this exercise. Quite often people make changes in their life and forget why, how they provoke those through the method. Okay. Now then, right, so your exercise is this, okay, and this will hopefully spark your creativity. I want you to get a random word off the internet, from a book. Just open a book at random. Dictionary is the best thing to do if you can find a random dictionary generator. In fact, there is a random word generator online. And I want you to come up with a tarot deck for us, and you can put it in this thread for this class, or put it in a new thread in the Tarot Professionals group. And I just want you to come up with a totally new deck. The best way of doing it is to usually choose two words and then try and mash them together in some way, particularly if the first word is a verb or an adjective and the second word is a noun. And then just put the tarot of, and then choose the two words. So if I chose this book, for example, and tried to pick a word out here, should put my glasses on. So I've got tranquil, the word tranquil, that's a nice word. So the tarot of the tranquil, and I'm going to go into this book and just open this, okay, so I've got a number of choices here. Okay, so I'm going to go with the word world. Yes, world. Okay, so my new tarot deck is the Tarot of the Tranquil World, and it's basically a set of 78 cards. And now I'm going to work on the modalities, and I'm going to think, what sort of pictures would it be? and they're going to be very soft, flowy pictures. They're all going to be landscape pictures. They're going to be no people in the deck, a bit like the Tildwick Tarot. And so the Tarot of the Tranquil World is a series of pastoral images, a long forgotten dreamlike world which you can occupy. And there we go. Okay, so I've got a new deck. So I'm going to send that off to Los Scarabeo and US Games and get them into a bidding war for it, and hopefully get an artist to paint it and someone to write the little white book for it as well. And I'd like you to do it as well. So you come up, and I want to see if you have a brilliant idea for a deck and don't want to share it too soon, then please don't publicise it. Otherwise, before you know it, someone else will be producing exactly the same sort of deck. Well, this is an exercise actually in Terosophy, and I can't remember which exercise it is. That's the Haiku exercise. It's exercise 31 in the Terosophy book, called Creating Your Own Tarot Deck. And some of the examples we had was the Architect deck, the Iron Curtain Tarot. Our favourite was the Septic Tarot of Disease. And I quite like the Tarot of the Inappropriate, where we had a whole series of cards that were the suit of inappropriateness, and they actually almost designed the whole deck in a workshop, which was great. Okay then, so I want you to use your new Page of Cups ability to step into a card and generate that creativity, that freedom that you have to imagine anything you want in your life. You're still free inside your head no matter what happens on the outside. And come up with your own deck, and I hope you found it a useful exercise in using the NLP modalities to be able to have like a control panel on your own brain. Tarot of the Near Future, right, I'm having that one, definitely. You need to put TM in brackets, by the way. If you put them on the Facebook group, let's have an inside joke that everything has TM in brackets to make it look as if we're really serious about this, and that we're claiming it immediately. To be honest, the moment you write it, it's sort of copyright, but the idea isn't copyright at all. So anyone could now make up the Tarot of the Near Future, but if you put TM next to it, then at least you might have a claim that you were going to utilise that as some sort of mark for something you were going to trade with at some future. Okay then, so let's have our bedtime story. Now, we're in the sort of middle of our sort of lockdown phase. I hope we're somewhere in the middle of it at least. And not all of the cities, the Tarot of the Unique Household. Not all of the cities are places we might want to be, but we do have to go through them. So I wanted to read this from our section on continuous cities in Italo Calvino's Invisible Cities. You reproach me because each of my stories takes you right into the heart of a city without telling you of the space that stretches between one city and the other, whether it is covered by seas or fields of rye, large forests, swamps. I will answer you with a story. In the streets of Cecelia, an illustrious city, I met once a goat herd driving a tinkling flock along the walls. Man blessed by heaven, he asked me, stopping, can you tell me of the name of the city in which we are? May the gods accompany you, I cried. How can you fail to recognize the illustrious city of Cecelia? Bear with me, that man answered. I am but a wandering herdsman. Sometimes my goats and I have to pass through cities, but we are unable to distinguish them. Ask me the names of the grazing lands, I know them all, the meadow between the cliffs, the green slope, the shadowed grass. Cities have no name for me. They are places without leaves, separating one pasture from another, and where the goats are frightened at street corners and scatter. The dog and I run to keep the flock together. I am the opposite of you, I said. I recognize only cities and cannot distinguish what is outside them. In uninhabited places, each stone and each clump of grass mingles in my eyes with each other stone and clump. Many years have gone by since then. I have known many more cities and I have crossed continents. One day I was walking among rows of identical houses. I was lost. I asked a passerby, "May the immortals protect you. Can you tell me where we are?" "In Cecelia, worse luck," he answered. "We have been wandering through its streets, my goats and I, for an age, and we cannot find our way out." I recognized him despite his long white beard. It was that same herdsman of long ago. He was followed by a few mangy goats which did not even stink. They were so reduced to skin and bones. They cropped up waste paper in the rubbish bins. "That cannot be," I shouted. "I too entered a city. I cannot remember when, and since then I've gone on deeper and deeper into the streets. But how have I managed to arrive where you say, when I was in another city, far, far away from Cecelia, and I've not yet left it?" "The places have mingled," the goatherd said. "Cecelia is everywhere. Here, once upon a time, there must have been the meadow of the low sage. My goats recognize the grass on the traffic island." The city of Cecelia in Calvino's Invisible City. So thank you for your time and attention in our NLP Tarot bedtime story session, 31st of our sequence of Tarot on events, Tarot of the Glitchy Internet, Tarot of the Amiga Murderers. Okay, we've got a whole library of new tarot decks to go and explore. That's exciting. So thanks a lot for your time and attention. I'll see you tomorrow. We're going to do a bit more work with using language patterns to really rock up our tarot card readings. And I hope that our little exercise today has given you some new ideas for doing visualization with tarot and for really entering into the tarot cards and living them. There are exercises in the Tarosophy book that will guide you through that sort of process, and also in a guided meditation. I'll put a link to that if people are interested in some of the background stuff as well. The bizarre one. How about the Noir Bizarre? That would be a good one. Or Tarot of the Black Bazaar. That would be, I'd buy that deck. Okay, take care. I want more details about all of your decks. That'll be very exciting to see the creativity at work. Okay then, thanks a lot. If you want to put some positive comments in the Facebook group about the series, I beg you, please do so, just in case other people might be interested, but just pass over the live videos because they might think they're just tarot readings or something like that. Okay, thanks a lot for your time and attention, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care of yourself, look after yourselves and each other. Not quite through this yet, but we are getting there. It's an analog process, and I'm sure we'll be out the other end at some future point. Okay, take care all.